If you put a room of adults in a conference room and ask them to list 5 smart things to do with money, most of them could rattle off the list pretty fast. Build an emergency fund, give generously, don't carry a credit card balance, put money in retirement, and live on less than you make. Nobody in that room is missing the information. You can find every one of those principles in a 30-second video or a best-selling book. The information has been solved for decades. And yet, the average American has less than $1,000 in savings. Credit card debt is at an all-time high. Financial stress numbers keep going up, not down. So if it's not an information problem, what is it? That's the question I want to actually answer today. Because once you can see this clearly, you'll understand why most financial advice doesn't stick. And you'll understand why the kind that does stick is almost never about money to begin with. I'm Kyle Blackwell. I'm a certified financial planner. I've spent almost 2 decades sitting with families working through their money. And alongside that work, I started building something called Purpose Path, financial stewardship program for young adults. The reason I built Purpose Path is honestly the reason I'm making this video. Tactics without identity don't hold up. That's the punchline. Let me actually show you how I got there, because I didn't start out thinking that. I learned it the slow way. The better part of 2 decades, I sat with people one client at a time, and I kept watching the same pattern. Someone walks into my office, we sit down, we build a plan together, a real plan with real numbers and a real timeline. They sign the agreement, they leave feeling great, they go home and tell their spouse, this is the year we get this dialed in. 6 months later, they're back. Not worse, just not better. The plan was good. The information was there. The behavior wasn't. Eventually, I started thinking about the next generation. The young adults who weren't even sitting in my office yet, who were going to be in this exact same chair 15 years from now if nothing changed. And I had this conviction that I needed to do something about it. First thing I thought was, okay, young adults are digital natives. They live on their phones. The way to reach them is going to be through technology. So I'll build a better app, something that actually fits who they are, something that integrates faith, reminders, devotionals, stewardship rhythms baked in. I had big, kind of grandiose plans around this. Started on a piece of paper, sketching out on screens. Then I moved to old school MS Paint. Yes, MS Paint, built rough mock-ups. Then I hired an app developer and we started actually putting it together. And I was excited. I really thought this was going to be the thing. But somewhere in the middle of that build, I started realizing something I hadn't expected. The app was going to be a useful piece, sure, but it wasn't going to fix what was actually broken. Here's what I mean. The people I'd watched succeed with money over 2 decades of advising were not the ones with the best apps or most elaborate spreadsheets. They were the people who had settled something deeper underneath. They knew who they were. They knew what money was for. They knew they weren't really the owner of any of it. An app couldn't give somebody that. No app can. Behavior change isn't a UX problem. So I didn't kill the app. The app still exists, but I stopped thinking it was the answer. And I started thinking of it as one piece of an answer. The other pieces I had to build. I wrote a book, Purpose in Every Paycheck, because the formational work, the identity work, the stewardship work needed something deeper than push notifications. I built a course, the Purpose Playbook, because young adults don't usually do this work alone. They do it in a small group with somebody walking with them. And the app, Purpose Planner, stays in the picture as the daily rhythm tool. More of a stewardship companion than a budgeting platform. 3 pieces, each one doing a job the others can't. And the whole thing is built around one idea, which is identity before income. I know it sounds like a slogan. It's not. It's actually the thing I had to learn the hard way before I could build anything that worked. When your identity is rooted in performance, money is always going to feel like a scoreboard. You'll check your balance and feel good or bad based on the number. You'll compare your salary to your peers and quietly measure your worth against theirs. You'll spend to prove something or save out of fear. Either way, money's running you. When your identity is rooted in something deeper than performance, money becomes a tool, just something you use, something you manage, something that doesn't have the power to define who you are. For me, that deeper thing is faith. Specifically, the idea that I'm not actually the owner of anything. I'm a steward. God owns it. When I really believe that, the way I handle money changes from the inside out. Not because I learned a new technique, but because my posture changed. Every financial decision I've ever watched someone make, including my own, flows downstream from identity. If you don't get the identity piece right, the tactics slip through your fingers no matter how good they are. If you do get it right, the tactics almost take care of themselves. This matters the most for young adults, and I want to explain why. By the time somebody's 40 and trying to fix their finances, the patterns are mostly set. The spending habits, the comparison habits, the places they've quietly hung their identity, all of it is calcified. Changing it is possible, but it's a long fight. I've watched a lot of those fights up close. A 22-year-old hasn't set the patterns yet. They're still forming, which means the window to build an identity that holds up under financial pressure is right now. That's not a window that stays open forever. That's the reason every piece of Purpose Path starts with identity. Not with a budget, not with a debt payoff plan, not with an investing tutorial. All of that's in there, but it comes second. Because without the identity piece, the rest tends to fall off within a season. You need to sit with a different question. Not what should I do with my money? Who am I in relation to money? What's it for? Who does it really belong to? What am I trying to prove with it? Those questions are uncomfortable. They go a lot deeper than a spreadsheet, but they're the only ones I've ever seen that actually change somebody. I wrote a book called Purpose in Every Paycheck that walks through this. If that's what you need, the link's in the description. If you lead a church or a campus ministry or a Christian college and you're looking at the young adults in your world wondering how to actually equip them, Purpose Playbook course is built for that. And the Purpose Planner app is in the App Store if you want a stewardship companion alongside the rest of it. 3 tools, each doing its job. But honestly, the most important one is the question you start with. Thanks for being here. I'll see you on the next one.